Hi, I'm Trick, and welcome back to Queer History Matters. This video is a continuation of my sex education series on Feedism. I highly recommend watching my previous videos in this series, which will all be linked in the description below. Today's video is going to be a continuation of my fetus book review of Feedism, Eating, Weight Gain, and Sexual Pleasure by Kathy Charles and Michael Palkowski. I covered the first chapter of this book in my first two videos in the series, which will also be linked in the description below. This episode will be focusing on chapters 2 and 3 of Charles and Palkowski's work. This is an analysis of semi-structured interviews with 23 participants who currently engage in Feedism, including 3 romantic couples who were interviewed as couples. Although this chapter offers a thematic analysis of 5 pieces of Feedism fiction, the interviews were by far my favorite part of reading this work, and I want to take the rest of my video to showcase other fetus voices rather than just the analysis of these works that is offered by Charles and Palkowski. The author's research was conducted with the aim of tackling assumptions and stereotypes linked to fetishism and addressing the gaps in previously existing fetus literature, such as a lack of diversity in participants, a small number of participants, and a focus on extreme forms of fetishism such as immobility. I would love to hear whether or not you think the authors have fulfilled these goals or not, especially from other fetists, so please let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. The first participant featured in Charles and Palkowski's work was named Gabriella. She's the editor of Horngry and a female feeder. I felt very connected to Gabriella's fetishism journey specifically, especially when she explains having only encouraged about 2 or 3 men so far, because for her it's very important to have a strong bond with the men. It doesn't necessarily have to be emotional, but just being able to talk to them and knowing where they're coming from is really important for Gabriella. At this point in my fetishism journey, I don't think I would fatten up someone that I didn't love. I think that fetishism has a very strong emotional component, especially for me. And although being able to talk to each other and have good communication is important in any relationship, in a relationship where you are altering someone's body, it is extra important to communicate with each other. There needs to be proper communication, mutual trust, and mutual respect. These are imperative to any type of relationship, but I feel like they are necessary to highlight in a fetishism relationship specifically. Talk to your partners and make sure that all parties are having fun. Also, being friends with your feeties is fucking awesome. I love just hanging out, enjoying each other's company outside of a fetishism context. It's really cool, and I highly recommend it. On the note of body modification, there is definitely a connection between fetishism and body modification for me, and the importance of good communication definitely applies to other body modifications as well. I have 18 body mods and counting, including 16 tattoos, and I feel like being able to communicate what you want and how you want it is an essential skill. I just want to take a moment to shout out my 2 favorite tattoo artists, Maribeth and Marilyn, who are both super dope and always make me feel very comfortable. Both of their Instagram pages are linked in the description below, and I highly recommend getting tattooed by them if you are in the Philly or South Jersey area. If you guys want to see some more tattoo content, I would definitely be open to it. Please let me know in the comments below. I also had a wonderful experience getting top surgery by Dr. John Taylor in Red Bank, New Jersey, and I plan on making a video about my experience, which will either be linked in the description or pinned in the comments, depending on when that video comes out in relation to this video. Thank you for listening to this little tangent. Now back to the fetishism content. The author's right. Gabriella was interviewed as a participant in this research as her identity as a female feeder represents a rarely addressed group in feederism research. Female feeders' voices are often silenced and need to be uplifted more in fetishism research. However, the way that the authors describe her experiences feels tokenizing. For example, Charles and Palkowski hypothesize that women enjoy feeding their partners due to the traditional female role of providing nourishment for the male in the home, which is something I completely disagree with. There are plenty of other reasons a woman would want to feed their partner, the most common of which I would argue because food is a love language and it can be a way of showing how you feel to those we love. I feel like women specifically are held to a different standard than this, than men especially, because, I mean, you're kind of demonized either way. If you want to be a feeder, then you're like subscribing to typical gender roles, but if you're a feedie, you're just a victim who is being taken advantage of. Like, it's not fair or fun. And I know, especially with some of my past relationships, dating women in the fetishism community, I know they've been subject to a lot more online harassment than I would typically experience. it's also a lot harder to live as a fat woman than it is to live as a fat man.
It's different for women.
I feel like men are given the ability to age and the ability to gain weight in a way that women aren't typically able to. And as someone who's been on both sides of the gender spectrum, I definitely feel like I was dealing with a lot more societal pressure to be thin when I was a woman than when I present more masculinely. And I definitely do think that for me, gaining weight while on testosterone was a very gender affirming thing and definitely felt good as a feedie. So I definitely think that gender affects one's relationship with feedism, but just I didn't like the way they presented Gabriella's perspective. It just didn't feel good. It felt tokenizing. Saskia describes feedism as sexual attraction to fat people or people getting fatter. The authors state that Saskia describes herself as a mutual gainer with both feedie and feeder tendencies. But Saskia has also been exclusively a feedie in the past. Saskia expressed that she feels that feederism can be done alone and it is not necessary to have a feeder to gain weight and enjoy it. This is something that I can 100% get behind. I think that anyone who wants to be fat should be fat, and that everyone deserves to do what they want with their body. Also, I apologize for any noises in the background. River is sick, so you might hear some sniffling, but it's just River being here for part 2 of the video, so do not be alarmed. Say hi, River. Hello. Saskia shares that she is interested in being fed to immobility and also feeding another person to that level. Charles and Palkowski write, for most participants, immobility is a fantasy-only concept, but Saskia is ready to go for immobility if the conditions are right. The main concern for her is a financial one, and knowing that she would be cared for. The authors found that many participants are happy to entertain the idea of immobility as a fantasy if they had unlimited wealth. Saskia has only told 2 or 3 people that she is a fetus. Charles and Palkowski write, she is very comfortable with her own body and enjoys it, but also feels a pressure to fit in and conform, which she acknowledges is difficult as an almost 300-pound woman. She would be uncomfortable with everyone knowing about her participation in fetism. Being secretive about fetism for fear of being judged is common across the sample. This is something I unfortunately have struggled with immensely, and I am so happy and beyond lucky to be in a place where I can be proud of my fetus identity, build a fetus community, and actively participate in fetism. A post by The Nade on Tumblr shares some insight into the shame and stigma that many fetus face. The blog post reads, just gathering this because I'm curious how many of us have been negatively impacted by shame caused by fat phobia and sexual ostracism. Fetists, have you ever experienced suicidal thoughts directly related to the shame you felt for your fetish? Of those who responded to the poll, 20% of participants responded yes, and 48%, including myself, responded no, but it negatively impacted my mental health. Only 12.8% of participants reported not struggling with feelings of shame. Fatphobia and sexual ostracism are unfortunately entrenched in our society, and no one should have to be secretive about fetism for fear of being judged. Gemma, another participant in Charles and Palkowski's study, defines fetism as people being attracted to the idea of gaining weight, either for sexual purposes or because it feels better to be fatter. Gemma has identified as a feeder for most of her life, but her identity has gradually changed over the years, and now she feels like it would be more appropriate to be labeled as a mutual gainer or a feedie. Gemma is actively trying to lose weight and in a relationship with a man who is not interested in feederism, but would not mind if she started to gain weight. I think this is worded to be kind of like weird, but I think what the authors are intending to say is that Gemma's in a relationship with someone who doesn't mind that she's a feedie or a gainer and that she wants to participate in feedism sometimes. But I'm not sure if that's what they mean, but I think that anyone should be comfortable with their partner gaining weight. Like, in sickness and in health, in thin and in fat. You know, I love my partners no matter what they look like, and I think that everyone should. Gemma feels that she definitely does not need another person in order to be involved in feederism because gaining feels good in itself and she can feel attractive by herself. The authors spent quite a bit of time discussing mainstream media depictions of fetism in this book. Gemma reports that she has not seen the documentaries made about Feedism that depict some of the more extreme varieties. However, she has heard about them and believes them to be universally terrible due to the shock value and the depiction of women as victims, describing these depictions as designed for sensationalism. Gemma emphasizes that female feedies want to be fed and that many mainstream depictions of feedism neglect the different gender and sexuality dynamics present in feederism. Someone else who agrees with this aspect of how mainstream media depictions typically neglect the different gender and sexuality dynamics is Benny. And Benny identifies as a feedie, a feeder, and a mutual gainer. Benny provided written answers first and then took part in review later on. So his analysis in the book, or the analysis of his experience in the book, includes answers from both sources. The book reads that he has never had a specific feederism relationship, partly because he finds it hard as a heterosexual man to find a female feeder. Benny's experience of the community has been that most men who want to gain are gay, and that his online profile generates a lot of comments and attention from gay men, but very little from women. He believes that feederism is a male-dominated fetish and even suggested further research on feederism in the gay community. Like many others in the community, Benny reports a fascination with fat since childhood. He also reports an interest in transformation, straightening clothes, and the feminizing elements of weight gain. Benny takes issues with the common narratives that men in the feedism community are abusive, stating that it is an inaccurate and unfair description, and this is something I also agree with. Gavin describes feedism as being attracted to their partner gaining weight and helping their partner do this by feeding him or her. He identifies as a feeder and does not believe that it is necessary to have a feeding partner in feederism. Gavin has gone for long periods of time without a partner and is happy to masturbate to fantasies and images of feedies gaining. His interview touches on fat phobia and how it has affected his relationships. Gavin discusses the difference between taking a forceful versus nudging role in feedism. However, I definitely recommend reading Gavin's full interview if or the section of the book that talks about Gavin's full interview, since it is not available. It's just a summary by Charles and Palkowski for all of these interviews. I highly recommend the read if you're a more of a encourager. The next participant, Ashley, was approached through Twitter to take part of the research, and she agreed. Her personal type of feedism depends on the mood, as she's a very fluid sexuality and enjoys playing different roles in fantasies. Ashley used to be a gainer but stopped due to having slightly high blood pressure and to minimize the risk of diabetes. Due to her health complications, gaining was just no longer fun for her, so she stopped. Now, Ashley participates in feedism in moderation. She also works as a Clips for Sale feedism model, and since starting her Clips for Sale, her engagement in feederism communities has become less about social engagement and more about posting content online, often with anonymous customers. Because of this, the excitement and novelty of these interactions are no longer factors for Ashley, and she describes the exchanges as more being one-sided and tedious, so she typically does not engage anymore, other than just posting her videos. I would love to promote Ashley's Clips for Sale if I could have found it, but I wasn't able to find it during my research. But if anyone wants to reach out to me and share Ashley's content with me, I will happily pin it in the comments below. And I will also be citing this book in the description below, so anyone who wants to read it can check it out. Another participant, James, found it difficult to express what it is about weight gain or bigger women that he finds attractive. He stated that asking a question like that is much like asking, why do you like the color yellow, or why do you enjoy going on drives in the nighttime? James does not identify with the term feeder, but describes feedism as one of the inherent properties of the human soul. Although I do identify with the term feeder, I feel as if James's experience is the closest experience in the study to that of my own, and his response also reminded me of this quote by Raphael Bob Blacksburg, the creator of the Netflix show BoJack Horseman. When asked in an interview how his identity as Jewish affected his writing, and specifically the melancholic humor of BoJack Horseman, He responded that asking me that question is like asking a fish how much being in water has affected it. I definitely feel like my fetus identity is an inherent property of my existence, and that asking me what my life would be like without fetishism would be like asking a fish what their life would be like without water. Like, it's something I cannot possibly fathom. James, like me, rejects the secrecy typically associated with fetishism. He states, I don't want to be in hiding anymore. I've done the hiding. I've tried cutting it out. I've tried attempting to not be a fetus, and it doesn't work. Trying to force someone to have a different sexuality just doesn't work. We all like what we like, and that's okay. Do whatever you want as long as it's between consenting adults and everyone's having fun. I'm not the purity police, and you are loved exactly as you are, by me, and that's a promise. Every single person listening to this, no matter how freaky you are loved. You are wonderful, and you deserve to be on this planet. Blossom utilizes part of her interview to discuss some of the terms used in the community, noting that every time she starts a conversation with someone she has met online, there's always a conversation about what terms are appropriate and how you would define yourself as someone in the community. Blossom likes the term feedism over feederism due to the neutrality conveyed in the term feedism, and feederism has connotations that suggest a one-sided relationship where power was vesting in one partner over the other, she states. The authors write, issues of consent and desire were key in determining the terms that the individuals preferred, and this is part of why it's so important. Page 86 and onward includes interviews of fetus interviewed as couples, which I highly recommend as its own read. I didn't take much notes on this section of the book as I feel like it would be too short of a version to get a full picture of the couples. However, I do want to highlight their voices as an important part of the study, as they did contribute a lot to the overall themes and analyses provided by Charles and Palkowski. There are also some fetus stories analyzed in the book as well, but I do not feel like the opinions of non-fetists on fetus writings are relevant to my research on fetism or my fetism practice. Therefore, they've also been excluded from this video. However, I did want to mention these analyses in case any of my viewers are interested in reading them on their own. The rest of the book is just kind of a conclusion. Charles and Palkowski identified three main themes in their research: early attraction to fat, agency, and fantasy. Childhood interest in fat began as early as 4 in some participants, with others unable to recall the age at which it began. Other participants describe an interest in fat that began later in childhood, that is likely to coincide more with puberty. But every single participant became aware of their interest in fat before the age of 18. This definitely aligns with my experience as well, as I cannot remember a time I was not interested in food and in fat. However, these feelings definitely intensified when I stumbled onto more 18 plus content during my first puberty, my girl puberty. I remember feeling so much shame and guilt around enjoying this type of content when I shouldn't have felt that way. And being in Catholic school at the time definitely did not help either. But I want to make content that would make that scared little 14-year-old feeder feel less alone. And I really hope that this video can be that for someone else. Along with childhood fascination in fat, the issue of agency was important in this research because, quote, previous portrayals of feederism focused on domination and the lack of control for the feedee. However, the authors' research, they found that several participants also expressed their concern about non-consensual depictions of feederism and wanted to emphasize their rejection of such behaviors, and that this was observed in both male and female participants. Chapter 3 of this book also delves into some of the limitations that authors found with this sample, including difficulty recruiting respondents, small sample sizes, and an incomplete picture of participant demographics. Another participant-related limitation which can affect any research focused on sexual behavior is that individuals who are in abusive and controlling relationships may not have been able to or been unwilling to take part in the survey. The chapter also explores some of the issues in the healthcare industry related to obesity and overall bariatric care. The book reads, there is now an onus on health professionals to encourage weight loss in overweight patients, whatever their complaint, leading to uniform advice against an uncertain reality by healthcare professionals. According to current research, for those involved in feederism, their overweight body or their body of their partner is a key part in their sexual well-being. The patient's / their partner's size is likely not the result of lack of education about food or a poorly managed lifestyle, but rather a choice that is likely to be a source of happiness rather than distress. Charles and Palkowski advised future Feedism researchers to attempt a quantitative study exploring the demographics and characteristics of feeders and feedes in greater detail. This could be beneficial because it would help us gain a clearer understanding of the similarities that participants might share with one another and might help further identify predictor variables relating to feederism. Additionally, a quantitative approach would allow comparison with the general population group in a way that qualitative research cannot. The authors state that it would also be interesting to undertake a prevalence study in order to understand how widespread feederism is. Additionally, there's very little cross-cultural work on feedism. A majority of participants in Charles and Palkowski's study were from North America, with only a few from Europe. An early reviewer of the study also suggested that the racial differences in feederism be explored, although it was not possible with the study as the information was not requested from participants. The authors urged further researchers to fill this gap, and further research into the LGBTQ feedism community was also recommended by participants. Information on sexuality was not formally requested in the study. However, several female participants identified themselves as bisexual. The authors conclude the book by encouraging future research to access knowledge of feedism in the healthcare field, particularly those who are the first point of contact and who are required to deliver healthy lifestyle messages. This would help gainers stay healthy without stigmatizing them or expecting them to suppress their sexual desires. It is in fact completely possible to promote a healthy lifestyle without suggesting that a gainer who is happy with their gain to lose weight. Healthy life choices are possible at any size, and I'm going to keep eating whatever I want, keep being my cute chubby self. However, I do try my best to live an active lifestyle and make exercise fun. I don't have a car, so I ride my bike or walk everywhere, and I also really like to do yoga and hike in nature. You just gotta find what works best for you and your body. Also, make sure you stuff yourself with lots of fruits and veggies. Alright, that's all I got for now. I hope you enjoyed my book review and analysis of Kathy Charles and Michael Pawlowski's Feederism, Eating, Weight Gain, and Sexual Pleasure. Thank you for watching Queer History Matters, and I'll see you guys in the next one.